Thank you so much, Ma'am Edna. Another round of applause, please. And before we ask questions, we still have second part of the forum. So kindly reserve your questions. I'm going to introduce to you the second resource person of the day, who will be talking about mitigating the effects of El Niño. He earned his bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Mapua Institute of Technology and his master's degree in civil engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. He previously headed the Special Project Coordination and Management Assistance Division and was the project manager of the INFRES project, an ADB-assisted rural development project of the Department of Agriculture. He is now the OIC Director for Field Operations Service of the said department. Please help me welcome Engineer Roy Abaya.
Sige, thank you Marlon. Magandang umaga po sa lahat, maayong buntag. So, taga Luzon po ako, but my wife is from Bohol, so medyo nakasabot ako sa Binisaya. So, I will be making my presentation dito sa preparation ng Department of Agriculture dito sa ina-expect nating na El Niño na hopefully sana hindi na matuloy. So, with the consultation ng Pag-asa and other stakeholders, we prepared this mitigation plan for the El Niño, mitigation and adaptation plan, para mabawasan yung mga effects o mga damages that we may incur dito sa agriculture sector. So, okay na. So, just laktawan na natin yan. Actually, na-present na ni Ma'am, sa mapa na lang. So, just to give you etong data na to was also provided by Pag-asa. So, ito po yung mga basihan natin in preparing the Department of Agriculture Mitigation Plan. So, we map up kung itong mga vulnerability maps on major crops. For palay, mayroon tayong dito nakalagay, high vulnerable. So, for Central Visayas, kasama po sila sa palay as highly vulnerable sa El Niño. While for moderately vulnerable, kasama dito ang Negros Oriental. So, Bohol and Negros Oriental may be affected by El Niño. For corn, most likely to be affected, highly vulnerable is Negros Oriental, and for Bohol is moderately vulnerable for corn crops sa El Niño. So Cebu, least vulnerable. So walang masyadong sa crops. Yeah. Cebu pala kasama. Cebu is highly vulnerable for corn. So just to give you a report, ito hindi pa El Niño ito, but alam naman natin during the early part of the year, nagkaroon talaga ng sobrang init. So this is not yet El Niño, but because of this na naramdaman ng mga major crops natin, we incurred some losses and damages. So ito po yung mga na-affected na areas in terms of the major crops, rice, corn. Malaking areas na affected during the dry season ng early part of this year sa corn. Mostly ito sa northern Luzon and some areas sa rice. So total areas affected for the tawag namin doon moisture stress is around 37,000 hectares. In terms of production loss, this resulted to about 840 million pesos. So, ito po yung breakdown. As I've said, malaking area. Basically, sa corn area ito. For Region 2, which is around 27,000 hectares out of the total 37,000 hectares. And in terms of production loss, Region 2 incurred the biggest loss in terms of production ng major crops. But comparing those losses dito sa expected production natin for that subject period, for rice, in terms of area, it is only about 0.48%, or in terms of production loss, it's only about 0.24%. So very insignificant in terms of the total projected area and production that we intend to harvest. For corn, medyo mas malaki ng konti in terms of area, it's about 2.15%, and in terms of production, it's 1.21%. So ito po yung mga potential impacts to agriculture, itong possible na El Nino that may affect the country. So, dalawa po kung ano ito. This may decrease production on some major crops like rice, corn, coconut, livestock and poultry, and of course sa fisheries. And may potential po tayo sa other crops. So it may increase production ito sa mga crops na hindi nangangailangan talaga ng maraming tubig. So like trees, mangoes, and other export earning fruit trees. So dito po natin i-focus yung mga intervention ng Department of Agriculture. So ito rin po another data that i-share namin sa inyo na ginamit namin in coming up or preparing this mitigation plan sa agriculture. We have this data dito sa 2010 El Nino. So actually 2010 El Nino, sinasabi ng Pag-asa, was a strong El Nino. And based on sa presentation kanina ni Ma'am Edna, hopefully itong 2014 to 2015 El Nino is weaker than the 2010. Pero dahil we wanted to make our plan mas responsive, inilagay namin sa situation na strong El Nino ang dadating sa atin for 2014-2015. So ito po yung mga tables. For 2010 El Nino, the total areas affected for rice was around 293,000 hectares. For 2014, we are projecting, based on the vulnerability maps sa mga historical data, this was actually the product of the thorough preparation ng Agri-Pinoy Rice Program. Nagkaroon sila ng conference. So, ito po yung pinoproject na might be threatened by the El Nino, strong El Nino. So, 317,000 hectares. And looking at Region 7, medyo maliit. Maliit ang tinitignan nila for rice. It's only about 1,500 hectares threatened by the El Nino. So in terms of total percentage, this is only 15% of the total area for rice expected to be harvested sa first half of 2015. Kaya 2015 yung inaano namin dahil based sa projection na rin, the impact of the El Nino, sinasabi na nila, will come towards the end of the year, mga last quarter up to the first quarter of 2015. So yun po lagi ang binabasehan natin ng mga ano. For now, in terms of production loss, for 2010 El Nino, nagkaroon po kami ng losses sa rice, 540,000 metric tons. And for this scenario, we prepared for this mitigation plan, we are looking at the possible production loss based on the areas affected, most likely to be affected with a strong El Nino. We are projecting possible production loss of around 618,000 metric tons. So this is 7% of the total production we expect first trimester of 2015. So for Region 7, so this is very insignificant, 1% lang of the total projected production ng Region 7 in sa rice. For corn, again, these were the data gathered sa 2010. Nagkaroon po tayo ng areas affected, 251,000 hectares. For 2014, we are projecting the possible areas that are threatened ng El Nino is 257,000 hectares. This is 20% of the total areas under corn. And in terms of looking at Region 7, this is 3%, 3,158 or 3% of the total corn area for Region 7. On the production side, the projected production loss during the 2010 El Nino is 623,000 metric tons. For 2014, the worst scenario, we are looking at around 705,000 metric tons, or this is 17% of the total production for corn. For Region 7, this is around 6% or 5,000 of the expected production of 95,600 metric tons. So ito na po yung mga strategies that we intend to implement to minimize the impact of this possible El Nino. So of course, these are our objective: to lessen the impact of the incoming El Nino, to restore agricultural productive capacity for the next season in areas possibly affected by drought. So major intervention po namin, dahil when we say El Nino, kakulangan talaga ng tubig. So water resources management and conservation intervention ang mga major intervention that we intend to implement. So isa sa mga activities that we are actually undertaking right now, tuloy-tuloy po ito, is the cloud seeding. So para ma-ensure natin yung mga water reserves in all major dams. Nabanggit kanina ni Ma'am na sa Magat, ay sa Angat, below critical. Other major dams, especially sa Northern Luzon, yung Magat, hindi pa naman siya bumababa sa critical, but malapit-lapit na. Pero we continue to conduct itong cloud seeding tuloy-tuloy. Only last weekend nagkaroon pa rin ng cloud seeding sa around Magat Dam area. So provision of additional irrigation pumps and engine sets. We say additional irrigation pumps because under the regular activity of DA, we continue to establish or implement this provide these irrigation pumps and engine sets. Repair and rehabilitation of damaged irrigation facilities. Construction, installation of additional shallow tube well, small water irrigation projects, diversion dams, small farmer reservoirs, and other small-scale irrigation projects. So we are now doing maintenance or repair works of all these facilities para lalong mapalakas natin o yung mga pag-hold ng mga water available right now, ready for the El Nino. On the production support, mayroon din po tayong buffer stocking of seeds, rice, corn, and assorted vegetables. So ready po ito that we can provide for those affected farmers. Just in case mayroong affected farmers dito sa mga major crops na ito, we are ready to provide this assistance to affected farmers. Promotion of crop shifting in vulnerable areas. So ito in-introduce namin. We are also providing additional inputs on these types of crops para gagamitin nila as alternate crops for those vulnerable areas. Early establishment of crops, maximization of farm productivity in the non-vulnerable areas, make available early maturing rice seeds, OPB, corn, and vegetable seeds. So mayroon din po tayong mga available for the farmers, itong mga sinasabi nating drought-tolerant varieties, na especially sa rice. So in-encourage namin sila to make use of these varieties. So crop calendar modification and change in cropping patterns. Mayroon tayong mga early maturing varieties, inaano natin, in-introduce natin sa mga farmers para maiwasan na madatnan sila ng mga tag-init. So as I've said, we have these drought-tolerant rice varieties and other crops. Ini-introduce natin, ready and available po ito sa mga magsasaka. Close monitoring for any incidents of pests and diseases. Another strategy on the production support, promotion of more efficient soil supplementation, fertilization strategies, the use of water-saving technology in rice production. Ito pa yung sinasabi nilang alternate wetting and drying. So may bago tayo, para tinitipid natin yung tubig galing sa irrigation, hindi natin pinapaubayan na tuloy-tuloy yung pag-agos doon. We just maintain some water para lang matuloy-tuloy yung pagtaas ng pananim. So, ang sinasabi nila for the first 30 days, we just maintain about 2 cm of water doon sa sa farm and then ititigil. Then we will, pag nakita na natin natutuyo yung lupa, lalagyan ulit natin ng tubig. That will go on before harvesting. So provision of control agents, drugs, and biologics. Waters, ito, most likely sa mga fish ponds, water sampling in brackish water and fresh waters. Imo-monitor po natin dito kung ano yung, especially kung ano na yung kalagayan ng mga tubig doon sa mga fish pond. Dapat ma-maintain natin yung temperature at saka yung oxygen doon sa mga fish ponds dito. Reinforcement of dike peripheral for increased water holding, deepening of fish ponds to promote tidal intrusion, stock enhancement in communal bodies of water. And on the information, ito po napakahalaga in partnership with other stakeholders, especially sa LGUs. So massive information in education drive to create awareness and motivate stakeholders' participation. So sa DA, mayroon po tayo itong mga farmer field schools, climate field schools, atong kasangga namin dito yung pag-asa, wherein dito sa climate field schools, pati yung mga pagbasa or pag-interpret ng mga forecast ng pag-asa, ipinapaalam natin kung ano magiging effect nito para sa ating mga farmers. We are also intending to put up itong mga agri-bonds natin. Nagkaroon lang kami ng meeting last week with ATI and our information officers na magkakaroon talaga ng campaign para may awareness sa mga magsasaka. Through the farmcasters, meron tayo yata mga farmcasters sa LGUs. We will be giving mga situationer on a weekly basis. Share nila ito sa ating mga magsasaka. So intensive and localized information campaign through multimedia. So ito po, meron tayong radio tsaka TV, mga plugs. I think lumalabas na rin yan sa mga regional local radio and TV stations. And of course, the submission of the weekly situationer. On the program management, so we are doing this especially dun sa monitoring and evaluation, links with all stakeholders, and this creation of the DA El Niño Task Force. So mayroon na po tayong DA El Niño Task Force. This is well coordinated with the other stakeholders. And this mitigation plan is the result of all this consultation with all the stakeholders. So initially, kahit mayroon na po tayong pondo in implementing those strategies, interventions, we are looking for additional funds para madagdagan yung mga intervention, especially on the water management intervention. So malaking component dyan is on the water management. This is around 487 million out of the total that we are asking of 835.2 million additional funds to implement all those strategies. Water management is around 58 or around 60% of that budget. The other components of production support on high value crops, fisheries, livestock, and then on the information and program management. Yung additional budget na to is still to be submitted to DBM. We have submitted this to the secretary, and maybe once we can justify all this additional funding, this will be submitted to DBM. But all the others interventions, tuloy-tuloy po yun. This is just additional, especially on the water management interventions. So I think that is all for the Department of Agriculture. Salamat po.
Thank you so much, Engineer Roy Abaya. At this juncture, we are going to ask some comments from our invited reactors from the different agencies in the region at the same time in the local scenario. May we ask if he's around? The Assistant General Manager of Metropolitan Cebu Water District, or MCWD, Mr. Lazaro Salvacion. Sir? A round of applause, please.
Yeah, I think the El Niño phenomenon is something that we should all be preparing for. But The question here now is how do we prepare for it? Like, especially in the timing. Because what is very clear is that what is predictable with El Nino is its unpredictability. Its unpredictability. It means that it's true that there are changes, but the recent observations and the monitoring activities conducted by even the 3 prediction centers are actually, although they are consistent, but trying to explain this to the ordinary people that El Nino is said to be 70% coming, but then people experiencing typhoons is really very difficult for us. But the company I am representing today, the Metro Cebu Water District, would have decided that with this kind of unpredictability, we would rather err on the conservative side. It means that even if we have to spend or invest on something to prepare us, even if this phenomenon will not come, we should be prepared. Okay, and we have been presenting this to the LGUs and to the press last month, and we are just happy that even after actually what happened is after presenting it 2 days after telling people that there's going to be a 70% chance that El Nino will come, it rained. And now when I came here to attend an El Nino presentation forum, there's storm. Still the same. It's better to, as I've said earlier, it's better to err on the conservative side than being hit or being impacted by the El Nino. Okay. By the way, am I supposed to present our preparation?
Yes.
Okay. I thought I was only a reactor. Okay.
Part of the reactions.
Part of the reactions. So thank you. Again, I represent our general manager. I am Lazaro Salvacion, Bubu in short. So this is how MCWD is preparing for the El Nino. So I think you have seen this slide also in the presentation of Pag-asa, and we're also using this. And so what is important to us is it's becoming unpredictable. Okay, is it affected by the rain? So what is really important to us is the statement that there's a 65 to 70% chance that's going to happen. Please. And if I may explain further, El Nino would not be important to us if it does not have any impact on us. And for MCWD, this is how we will be affected by the El Nino. So we have actually 2 kinds of sources, the groundwater and the surface water sources. Our surface water source is the Klupan facility and the Buisan Dam. These are all surface water sources, so they are above ground. So the rest, the 80% is groundwater. This is what is extracted by the wells. Okay. So our groundwater sources provides 164,000 cubic meters of water per day. And our surface water source is around 40,000 cubic meters of water per day. Okay, now why am I presenting this? Okay, so surface water is actually 33,000 from the Klupan facility, that is in Mananga, Talisay, and the Buisan is in Labangon, upstream, and that's 7,000, so a total of around 40,000 cubic meters of water per day. Okay, so I am presenting that because the El Nino have different impact on the 2 kinds of sources that we have. For the surface water, it is directly affected by the amount of heat or increase in temperature brought in by the El Nino. This is a graph showing the reaction of especially of our surface water source. So if you can see that red line, that is actually the reaction of our surface water source. So what is important in that drawing is that you can see how quick the surface water source's water level is declining. And this is 20% of the total water that we're providing to the people of Metro Cebu, or to the people that we're serving. Okay? And although in this year, although it did not really decline as quick as in 2010, but we would want to be very conservative in our preparation. Conservative in the sense that we would be more prepared than would be necessary. So we assume that such decline will happen this year. And the second thing that is important is how long would this duration be? So we estimated that if the duration would be more than 10 months, as have been frequently predicted and stated by the prediction centers, then we are preparing for that. Okay, so those are the, okay, that's the trend. So then if our surface water sources will be affected, and that is 20% of the production capacity, it means that we will have to find a replacement for these 40,000 cubic meters of water per day. Or if not, we will have to ask those who will be affected to somehow reduce consumption. Anyway, the consumption of water is actually not uniform in terms of the total consumption. There are consumptions that we can actually somehow sacrifice or implement some other means of saving water. Okay, so for replacing this, so this is the additional supply that we intend to put in. In fact, the plan is to get in this new bulk supply in August. The biggest is the 18,000 cubic meters of water per day from the Carmen bulk water supply. And this supply comes from Carmen. So it's a surface water source, but it's a very good surface water source because there's a spring there where the original source is actually covered by a very good limestone layer. So it's not actually directly affected by the heat. Okay, and another, please go back. So, please go back. And another 14,000 for from new sources which are groundwater and which have been considered already before we have our groundwater model. Okay. So, assuming that although we have prepared enough volume to somehow provide for the most important components of water use, we would like to encourage everyone to help us also in this endeavor, because this will not only affect the volume, but this will also entail distribution management difficulties. What we're trying to say is that the 40,000 is not actually distributed uniformly all throughout the service area. It's focused on the influence areas of the surface water sources. In the Haklupan facility, for example, which is 33,000, it means that when that facility dries up, it's the concessionaires living within the influence area of that supply. And also of the consumers within the influence area of the Buisan Dam. Although the Buisan Dam is actually a smaller, is providing a smaller volume. So if it means that there would be problems on the influence area of the specific surface water sources that is affected by the El Nino, then we have to bring in water from the groundwater sources that might be far away from where the impact is. So those are the things that that will provide difficulties. So to minimize that, what can help all of us and can be part of our contribution to address this El Nino impact is actually to save a portion of what we're consuming. So we have observed that the average consumption within Metro Cebu is around 160 liters per day per capita, per individual. That consumption is distributed over those kind of uses. So drinking is only 6 out of 160 liters. And that's the very important need for water. Next is personal hygiene, 68 of the 160, sanitation services, 74, cooking and kitchen, 12. 12. So I'm presenting this because we would like to show that there are things that we can actually reduce in terms of use or implement some other means. For example, when we go to the CR and we use our water closets, every flush is around 4 to 6 liters. 4 to 6 liters of water per flush. So if we can make use of we can reuse the thing that we wash our clothes in the washing machines. Instead of draining it, we put it into a pail and use it for flushing. It's actually 6, if it's 6 liters, that's 6 liters over 160. That's almost 5%. So it can actually already contribute much. And then during my presentations, I was asked, how can the LGUs help? Can we tell the car wash entities to stop washing the cars? And I said, no, we cannot stop that. That's business. But each of us, if we try not to go to these entities during El Nino for having our cars washed, because we do not really need to have our cars washed frequently, especially during the El Nino, it can be a very big contribution also. Okay, I think that's all, and that's MCWD's preparation for the El Nino.
Thank you, Mr. Salvacion. So the key word here is conservation or water conservation, and it always starts at home. It's something that everyone can contribute. Our next reactor is coming from the Department of Agriculture. He's the Regional Technical Director. May we call on Mr. Joel Elomba.
Excuse me. Wala kaming presentations.
Just a reaction, sir.
Okay. What Director RAFI has presented for the mitigation and adaptation measures of the Department of Agriculture, Region 7 is part of that. Yes, all preparation for the El Nino. What we are trying to include or encourage is the farmers to participate, especially on the monitoring of production areas. Farmers are the one really, what we call this, knowledgeable on the respective areas. So in Region 7, we encourage our farmers through our local counterparts, local government units, and some of our frontliners, volunteers. In Region 7, we have for example, in Cebu, we have the BAHA, Barangay Animal Health Aid. They are on the community side. In Negros Oriental, we have also the Blade. No? And we have also these localized farm technicians, the LFTs. No? So we encourage them to report on time to the local government units, to the MAUs, and to the Department of Agriculture, to what actually happened on the production areas. The Department of Agriculture could not really cover each or every meter of production areas, so we allow our farmers to report on time what is happening on the ground, so that we can also execute and mitigate and some interventions easily. No? So proper reporting was also initiated in Region 7. So right now, I think our farmers in the 4 provinces of the region is already informed about the impending El Niño phenomenon.
Thank you, Mr. Ilamba. So I think the local government units are already also prepared in reference to the Department of Agriculture. If you have some concerns, you can always visit the department for any problems that you may have to solve with the department.